In this video, I'm going to talk about writing the hypothesis. And recall that when we talk about writing a hypothesis, we're writing the null and the alternative. And when you talk about your null hypothesis, it's called H naught or H original, or we even call it H zero because it's the assumed truth. The null will always be assumed. And that's like when you go to court, you're innocent. So your null is that you are innocent. And then the alternative is the one that's going to compete against that. We write that as HA. So I'm going to write both of those. And when I write hypotheses, what I do is I first identify a parameter. Every problem we're going to talk about is going to be the mean. And we're going to talk about the population parameter, which is the population mean. So we're going to call that mu. So the first thing I'm going to do in each one of these problems when I start them is I'm going to identify that population mean by underlining it. And so if you look at this first problem, it says, a school publicizes that the average number of children in a class is 25. Parents of a PTO believe that the claim is more. What is the hypothesis to be tested? So the first thing I want to do is I want to identify what parameter am I talking about. And here it's talking about the average number of children in a class. And so now we know that this is the parameter mu. And when I go and write my hypothesis, I already have that mu defined as the average number of children in the class. And so to write the actual hypothesis, you start off with the null, H naught. And we'll call this, and we'll write it like this, and it says H naught, the null is always equal to. So we'll say mu is equal to, well, they tell me that mu is the average number of children in the class, that mu is equal to 25. And then to write the alternative, what is the competing claim? Well, it says parents of a PTO believe the claim is more. So because they believe it's more, we think that the competing claim is that it's going to be greater than. So this is HA, the alternative. And again, we always define the parameter, which is mu, is greater than 25. So a couple key things here. Notice the null is always equal to, and here you're going to take on, for your alternative, you take on either less than, greater than, or not equal to, depending on what the problem is stating. You're always talking about the parameter. So when you write here, you should never see, for instance, an X bar. It should always be a mu sitting here. And this value back here will never change. If you put mu equals, if you put 25 here, and the alternative, you should also write 25. Now, let's look at the next example. It says a car dealership announces that the mean time for an oil change is 15 minutes. A group of consumers believe it is different from the time being advertised. What is the hypothesis to be tested? Again, my first step is to identify the population mean. And the claim that the car dealership is making is that mean time for an oil change. Here's the mu. So when I write this, I'm going to write H naught, the null, as mu is equal to, and it tells me that the mean is equal to 15 minutes. And the reason we underline this and define mu to begin with is because when I read this now, if I want to replace mu with what's underlined, it actually reads as H naught is the mean time for an oil change. So the mean time for an oil change is 15 minutes. And now, what competes with that? Well, it says a group of consumers believe it is different. Do they think it's more? Or do they think it's less? Or do we even know? Well, they're just saying that it's different. And because it's different, it could be either greater than or less than, which makes this a two-side alternative. So HA is, mu is not equal to 15. And we're doing not equal to because it can be either on the left or the right. We don't know what it is. We just know that it's different. And on my last problem, it says a company advertises that the average life of its furnaces is 18 years. An advertising group believes that it is less. What is the hypothesis to be tested? So again, identify the population mean mu. And that is going to be the average life of its furnaces. And so H naught, we always do equal to, so as mu is equal to, here it says mu is equal to 18 years. Now, what is the competing claim with that? Well, they believe that it is less. So your HA is going to be a left-tailed test or a left-sided alternative, which is mu is less than 18. And again, when you look at this, notice the equal is in the null, and here we set the direction in our alternative.